Oh, can you pause it there? She put her purse next to the guy, so she's coming closer towards his proximity. Putting an object near somebody would not be happening on a first date.
And a trust signal too, because it's her wallet.
These 3 body language experts will watch these 5 couples going on dates. Can they guess accurately how long these couples have been dating, based only on their body language? Let's begin.
What is intriguing to me is on footage 1, the bag is on her chair and she's very close. There's a lot of close behavior. And the guy as well doesn't look very comfortable.
So I would have to actually disagree with you that we're seeing discomfort in number 1. She's crossing her arms and making herself small, yes, but she's also mirroring her partner who's doing the same. They're coming together. I think that they're actually really comfortable in each other's space.
I see a lot of reserved behavior there. In number 1, she is covering her ventral side. He's sort of stoic with his arms crossed, and I would want to look at more information. Trying to discern from a video how long people have known each other, how long they've dated, that's really tough. Humans are very complex. Any behavior that you see at any moment is really driven by context. Number 5 was interesting because they were so animated and they seemed to be in tune with each other.
Though they've not actually physically touched, we can see there's a lot of closeness. One of the most well-supported indicators of interpersonal closeness is the degree of nonverbal mimicry between partners. I want to see how close people get to each other, how comfortable they are in each other's space. There's so much mirroring behavior. They lean towards each other and they're smiling at the same time. Kind of like a movement dance going on the whole time.
When you see a lot of mirroring behaviors, you tend to think, okay, they've been together for quite a while.
It's not a first date.
Yeah. What I'm seeing here with number 3 is a direct contrast. There's a lot of self-soothing displays.
She was literally grabbing the table. My strategy would be to really focus on the details. What are they doing with their hands, doing with their gestures? Maybe they will touch objects to pacify themselves.
But that was a very specific behavior that stood out, that she grabbed the table like that. To me, that could be a comfortable moment.
I see the man here, he's doing a lot kind of with his hands. It seems to be a lot of nervousness. When I look at their legs, especially the woman here, her legs are tucked underneath her body and wrapped together. She's not feeling negative so much because we're seeing some smiles here, but in the lower body I am seeing some discomfort that this might be the first date. This is a direct contrast to what we're seeing in number 2. Rather than withdrawing into themselves, they're actually taking up each other's space very comfortably. This maybe isn't a long-term marriage because there seems to be a lot of flirting going on, which does tend to die off as the relationship ages because there's less need to show attraction. So we see some flirting going on. We're seeing lots of kind of coy smiles here on number 4. The opposite side, we see some finger picking. When people are trait anxious rather than dispositionally anxious, you see lots of picking of the fingers.
The person on the right, they still have their hands low between the legs. That's very much a comforting behavior. And even though the person on the left has both moved back and forward, there was no reciprocity. In other words, we usually, if somebody smiles, we smile. If somebody waves, we wave. Reciprocity says, I really enjoy what we're doing here, but we're not seeing that.
Now, this could be because one person has attraction and one doesn't, or maybe one person is feeling negative towards the other and the other is trying to get that person to engage. All we can really tell from this is that there is an asymmetry here in feelings towards one another.
She may be trying to draw her out and her mind is somewhere else.
Yeah. Interesting. With number 1, they are interacting, but they have a bit of a bigger distance.
They haven't really changed their positions that much. Fluidity of action often speaks of high comfort. If you notice, other couples have moved in and out of different positions. It is very unusual to remain in the same position for this long. So I'm just wondering if they're nervous around each other, if they're reluctant to move around too much.
Okay, can you stop number 2? What we just saw was, I would say, very intimate behavior. She's taking the napkin and she's giving it to him. So there was very close proximity. While they're eating, she's taking care of him. So definitely a longer relationship than a first date. Number 5, you just saw a head tilt. There was a head tilt. One more again, and not again. We call that a clue, as you would say. It's getting more and more interesting at number 5 because there's a lot of flirting going on, I would say. She's pacifying herself on her neck. There's a little bit of you could say, courting maybe going on. He's smiling, he's leaning forward. That's interesting to look at.
What's interesting about number 1 is that we're seeing negative emotion, but we're not seeing any attempt to engage, which would suggest it probably isn't a first date, and it probably is negative emotion rather than nervousness. Because when I contrast this to number 3, I see similar signs, but in number 3, I am seeing a lot of nervous displays. Seeing some really heavy breathing here. We can see her chest going up and down quite a lot. She's taking quite deep breaths. The emotion's positive, but we're seeing that discomfort at the same time. And we see number 1, we see a smile. Yay. We see some positive emotion.
Maybe the food is coming.
Maybe he's apologized for something.
One would hope.
Okay, that's definitely a very important thing that we just saw. So now there is a connection physically. She's coming out of her shell, so to say.
This is an intimate behavior, even though it's just the fingertips. You have to remember that the fingertips are just plush with nerve endings that are very sensitive. This is a very powerful sign here. Interesting, when the food was brought over is the first time they're sort of smiling and so forth.
A lot of comfort displays here. She's doing a little dance while she's eating. Maybe they were just hungry. And that's where that negativity is coming from, which I can completely understand.
You also see it in number 1. We're seeing changes in behavior. I think they were just low on blood sugar. Finally, a little bit more animated. They're both nodding in agreement. Even though they're slightly reserved, maybe because of filming circumstances, they look a little bit more comfortable now. Stop right there. Oftentimes we can tell people really are enjoying each other because they move objects out of the way so that they have a clearer view. But let's stop here.
That's fantastic. She lifts her ankle. That's ventilating behavior as well.
A lot of people focus on the face, not realizing that the feet are actually more honest in revealing just how close we are. We don't unveil our feet, and we certainly don't move them this close to the other person unless we're really comfortable around them. Look how much more animated number 4 is now. There's so much mirroring, even though their hands aren't exactly doing the same thing. Their faces certainly show they're really into each other.
Yep. In number 3, on the opposite side, his hands have barely left each other this whole time. We're seeing lots of awkward displays. And we're seeing lots of touching of the menus.
The nose. He might be itchy, but in this case, we've seen a lot of discomfort.
You see their hand on her knee. That's actually a pacifying behavior. There may be a lot of nervousness there that we're still experiencing.
She's not just touching her knee, she's gripping her knee. She's actually starting to scratch, which might say that the discomfort level is actually increasing. Number 2, we're seeing comfort displays. We're seeing him, talking with his mouth full. They're laughing while they're eating and speaking. There's less perception management going on.
Number 2, we literally see him picking her food. So that's a very intimate gesture there. You would not do that on a first date.
We see a similar behavior with number 1. They just swapped plates. They picked each other's and swapped.
Not only did they trade plates, but he was generous and he moved her glass out of the way.
I am starting to think that number 1 might be a longer term marriage because they seem so comfortable in the negativity. And what's interesting here about number 3 is we're starting to see them loosen up. We're starting to see a little bit more comfort, which is what you would expect as people get to know each other. So we're kind of seeing a progression here of their comfort levels.
In number 1, even though she's leaning back, her foot is very close to his leg. And that begins to talk to us. We saw some of it in number 5. They never really touched, but they were willing to at least venture out that way.
And so far, we haven't seen it in number 3.
Look at number 4, because this is critical. It's called foot cradling. We do it with babies. We get their feet and we comfort them that way. This is a high comfort display. There's a lot of trust here.
When we look at number 2, there's a lot of touching, but also longer touches.
You could look at the feet and say, yeah, but they withdrew their feet. Well, I don't think that really matters. Their feet for them are in a comfortable position. Look at the other behaviors that say we're really comfortable around each other.
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting for all 3 of us is these behaviors, at what point do they become norm? Do they become norm at 3 months? Do they become norm at 5 months or 15 months? People who get along really well within weeks may be mirroring each other, maybe copying each other. How long have they been together? That's really tough.
That's really tough.
And now it's time to guess.
I'm heading towards them being married 4 years.
4 years.
1 year.
I'm Jocelyn.
And I'm Jake.
We've been married for 1 year.
I'm not surprised by this just because they seem so comfortable and they didn't seem to be engaging in any perception management whatsoever.
For the first few minutes, they just sat there, not really moving, not really interacting. It's interesting that now that we're looking directly at their faces, you kind of get a sense that, yeah, I can see this as a couple for a long time.
I'm torn between married 4 years or dating 5. Dating 5 years.
I'm Courtney.
I'm Mikey.
Been together 5 years.
5 years.
I almost put 5 years for this one just because they seem so touchy. Maybe it wasn't marriage yet. Maybe this touching behavior will slowly start to fade in the nicest possible way.
To me, the number doesn't matter. The fact is that you could tell immediately this couple really likes each other. Of all the couples, they're the one that are closest to a first date.
I'm John.
I'm Lauren. This is a blind date.
Blind date.
Oh, well.
Well done.
And with all those touching behaviors, finger touching, rubbing, that says to me, we're not really comfortable.
So I'm going to go with my gut, but I think I might be wrong.
My name is Dora. My name is Mercedes. About a year.
Yeah, the lack of mimicry was saying to me that it wasn't super long term.
One thing you can tell, how much empathy is also displayed. When one was reluctant to talk or was a little stoic, the other one helped to bring the other one out. That's also a good sign of a good relationship.
I think it's a first date. A good one.
Hi, I'm Brinda.
I'm Sahaj.
And we've been together for 14 years.
Married for 4.
I'm kicking myself with this one because prior to this, I said my strategy was look for the most mimicry. They showed the most mimicry, and I just disregarded my strategy.
Okay, we want the PhD back. Yeah. Once again, as we looked at this couple, we saw the mimicry, we saw the joviality, they were having a good time. Whether it's a date or an experience, in essence, that's really what matters.
Yeah.